I'm sitting here, my mouth is agape. Everybody all bent out of shape over this report that ObamaCare is going to add $340 billion to the deficit, as though that's somehow some big news. Has everybody forgotten it was just a couple of months ago that it was documented by the Congressional Budget Office that the whole thing is going to cost twice as much as it was projected? The original cost of Obamacare was under $1 trillion, and the magic number was $1 trillion because that was the cost of the Iraq War, and Obama had to say that, everybody hated the Iraq War. It was a waste of $1 trillion. We want to put that money to better use with health care. They had to score that stupid bill, that stupid health care bill, so it came in under $1 trillion. And the way they did, by the way, hi folks, Rush Limbaugh here at 800-282-2882. The way they did that over a 10-year period was to start the tax cut or tax increases immediately, but they delayed any of the so-called spending or health care benefits until the bulk of them until 2014. So we had 10 years of tax increases, only 6 years of so-called health care benefits, and that's how they kept the number under $1 trillion. The CBO looked at it and said, by the way, when this thing gets fully implemented and we're going to count both the tax increases and the spending over 10 years, guess what? The cost goes up to nearly $2 trillion. And today there's a story, it's a Republican report from Medicaid actuary or Medicare, whatever, that it's going to add $340 billion of debt. That's like adding a quarter. $340 billion is not even, well, it is. It's a sizable amount of money, but it's going to be so much more than that. Anyway, the White House is act like stuck pigs over this news, and they're trying to deny it. And they're saying it was partisan. The Republican reports, 52 pages, put this out. But it's chump change compared to what this thing is actually going to cost. And don't forget, the news recently, 4,000 IRS agents are being hired. And $500 million is being diverted to hire them and to put them into gear. And you need to be asking yourself, in a health care bill where it's all about you getting treated for the mumps or whatever, why in the world is the IRS involved? Every citizen needs to ask themselves that question. What is the point of the IRS? They are a tax collection agency. What do they have to do with health care? $340 billion added to the deficit over 10 years. That's going to happen every year. We go back and we look at every entitlement program that the Democrat Party's put forward, from, you name it, the Great Society, all the way to AFDC. We had Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Every damn one of those programs has come in so far over what the original cost projection was that it's laughable. And $340 billion. I mean, good work by this Republican guy. What's his name? Charles LaBooth or something. I'm doing it at the top of my head here. I don't have it right. Yeah, Blehaus. Charles Blehaus, who serves as a public trustee overseeing Medicare and Social Security finances, suggested that federal accounting practices have obscured the true fiscal impact of the health care bill, the fate of which is now in the hands of the Supreme Court. Leading conservative economist estimates in a study to be released today that the overhaul will add at least $340 billion to the deficit, not reduce it. I am stunned that anybody thinks that's news. I honestly, intellectually stunned that anybody. I am also stunned that anybody thinks that any of Obama's new policies will fix any of Obama's failed policies. Well, I'm the only one who made a big deal out of the $1 trillion CBO scoring. I'm the only one who made a big deal over the fact it was going to cost $2 trillion in 10 years. I'm the only one. Well, that means at least 20 million Americans know, because they listen, and we didn't just lightly touch that. We didn't just barely gloss over it. Made a big deal out of it. Folks, you are so far ahead of the game listening to this program. You are so far ahead of the learning curve. But it's laughable, and everybody's all exercised. I mean, even people on our side are acting shocked and stunned and like they've stumbled across some big new news story that they can really use to effectively kill Obamacare. Now, here's why. Grab audio soundbite number 1. This is Obama. This is September 9th, 2009. Joint session of Congress about health care reform, and this is what the president said.
Finally, let me discuss an issue that is a great concern to me, to members of this chamber, and to the public. And that's how we pay for this plan. Now, here's what you need to know. First, I will not sign a plan that adds one dime to our deficits, either now or in the future. Second, we've estimated that most of this plan can be paid for by finding savings within the existing healthcare system.
All right, so again, you have to say, why did anybody believe him? This is a liberal Democrat talking about a new entitlement, not one of which has ever saved money. Not one entitlement in the history of this country has ever come in below cost projections. It's always ballooned way beyond them. So today, look, I'm happy. Don't misunderstand. I'm happy for the news that it's finally out there. I must have had 15 people send me this today as though, hey, look at this. Why, this is the biggest, this is the most important. And you and I have either known or suspected this since before Barack Obama even was elected. We know what happens with liberals and the implementation of new entitlements. In fact, I want to take you back to September 10th of 2009, the day after Obama made that joint session speech. I want you to hear my reaction to it. If you were listening then, you'll remember this.
The office of the President of the United States was demeaned last night. President Barack Obama gave a grossly inappropriate and, to me, embarrassing speech, a campaign speech disguised as a big speech to a joint session of Congress. It was grossly inappropriate in content. There were lies, falsehoods, distortions. It was embarrassing in tone. He called his critics liars when his own positions have been proven to be untrue. That speech last night was a fraud. It was dishonest. It demeaned the office of the presidency.
And there hasn't been anything changed since then. Now, this CBO report that projected that health care would cost twice as much after it said that the cost of Obamacare will double. They said that it wouldn't significantly add to the deficit. Now, I don't know who they thought was going to read that and believe it. I don't know how you can double the cost of an entitlement and then say the deficit is not affected. Surreal, all of this is. Anyway, folks, you and I, we are so far ahead of the curve here. We knew years ago that this thing was going to bust the deficit and the national debt wide open, and there are people who think they're smarter than you are, who are just learning this today, who think it's the biggest news to come down the pike since Obama was inaugurated. Now, Obama's out there making fun of this Republican's math. The White House position on this is that the claim is false. This new math fits the old pattern of mischaracterizations about the Affordable Care Act when official estimates show the health care law reduces the deficit. So the regime is sticking with this lie that their health care plan reduces the deficit. Now, this is the bunch, folks, that can make the unemployment rate go down without reducing unemployment. This is the bunch that can make the unemployment rate go down while we continue to lose jobs. More jobs are lost, more jobs are stricken from existence, and the unemployment rate goes down with this bunch. So why can't they double the cost of an entitlement and say it isn't going to add to the deficit? Because they will say whatever they want. They will make it up. They will lie. They know that their sycophants in the media are going to report it. And that's why something like $340 billion added to the deficit because Obamacare is reacted to with breathless excitement. Of course, the regime, again, is denying this. CBO estimates, Medicare, Medicaid, both have ended up costing more than 10 times what the CBO projected in 1965. Medicare and Medicaid have cost 10 times what citizens of this country were told in 1965. Paul Ryan has been saying this about Obamacare for months. He has been trying to warn people. Every time he submitted a budget, when he's gone out and talked about his budget, he has said there's a huge deficit involved here with Obamacare, and he's been laughed at and mocked and made fun of it, or made fun of because of it all along. But this study from this Republican actuary just says what we have known all along and what we've been saying all along. And even the AP, in their story on this, admits that all the supposed savings in Obamacare come from double counting Medicare cuts. They double count Medicare, $500 billion times 2. They double count it. The first thing they do is they cut it, and then they put it back in. And they count it both times when they do this. Under federal accounting rules, the Medicare cuts are credited as savings to the program's trust fund, but then the CBO and Medicare's own economic estimators already said the government can't spend the same money twice. You can't cut it and then spend it, and that's what the plan does, and that's how the CBO scored it in order to keep it under $1 trillion. I could go back to the archives of this program. I could look it up. All the times that I have said Obamacare would increase the deficit, I'll bet you I've mentioned it 100 times in this program since they first trotted out this claim that it was going to reduce premiums $2,500 on average, that it was going to reduce the deficit. Just one example taken from random. January 5th, 2001, Democrats push health care deficit lie. We talked about it on this program. It's the archives at rushlimbaugh.com. Democrats push health care deficit lie. This is it's part and parcel of the way they operate. They have to lie about every aspect of every entitlement they create. They lie about the benefits. They lie about the sweeping success. They lie about the cost. They lie about all of it. They have to. Couldn't get elected if they told you the truth. The thing you need to remember, because you have common sense and you know full well that this thing is going to cost $2 trillion. You know full well it's got death panels. You know full well that if the court decides the wrong way, that we're going to be required to buy this coverage or pay a fine. You know that's good. And then you know that the IRS is going to be examining everybody's tax return to determine who is complying. So you need to continually ask yourself, and you need to continually ask your friends to explain to you, act like you don't know. What does the IRS have to do with the health care? Why is the Obama administration hiring 4,000 new, or diverting, whatever, I think it's hiring 4,000 new agents for the implementation of their health care bill? What in the world does the IRS, a tax collection agency, have to do with curing diabetes? What does the IRS have to do with treating cancer? What does the IRS have to do with making sure that if you're in an automobile accident, you get the best coverage in the emergency room? Now, here's the bottom line in terms of legality. Budget rules, congressional rules. If Obamacare does not reduce the deficit and instead adds to the deficit, then it should never have been passed via budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation requires that the deficit not be increased when you use that procedure to pass legislation.